Beggar girl says she can translate Arabic for Millionaire. Then when she talks to the Sheikh's son, something incredible happens. Comment what you think will happen and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Sweat dripped down the brow of Vincent Rodriguez as he watched his $1 million fortune crumble before his eyes. At 30, with a heartthrob look that made secretaries swoon in the hallways of Rodriguez Construction, he had invested everything in the most ambitious project of his career, a luxury resort that would be financed with Arab capital. The problem was that at that moment, at 2 in the afternoon, on a sweltering September Thursday in Phoenix, his only chance to save the deal was slipping through his fingers. Khalil al-Mansouri, 35, the son of a powerful Dubai businessman, paced back and forth in Vincent's office conference room, gesturing furiously and speaking in Arabic. His dark eyes flashed with irritation as he checked the gold watch on his wrist for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The translator who was supposed to mediate the meeting simply hadn't shown up, and the language barrier had turned what should have been a $5 million negotiation into a corporate Tower of Babel. "Hatha la yukal!" Khalil shouted, slamming his hand on the imported mahogany table. His words echoed through the room, loaded with a frustration that Vincent understood perfectly, even without understanding a single word. Vincent felt the weight of responsibility crushing his shoulders. His stock market investments had been fully allocated to the project, and without this deal, his company would face bankruptcy in a matter of weeks. The wealth he had built over 8 years of hard work depended on that meeting, and he was watching it all fall apart because of a communication breakdown. It was in this moment of absolute despair that a small, crystal-clear voice cut through the tense air of the room. "He's saying that this is unacceptable and that he's going to leave if you don't resolve this soon." Vincent turned sharply, searching for the origin of that childish voice. Khalil also stopped pacing, his eyes wide with surprise. There, in the doorway, stood a girl who didn't look more than 2 years old, although her posture and expression revealed a maturity impossible for someone so small. Her brown hair was disheveled, her dirty and torn clothes showed days on the streets, and her extreme thinness contrasted with the intelligent sparkle in her big, dark eyes. "Who are you?" asked Vincent, still processing what had just happened. "My name is Yasmin," replied the girl, her voice firm despite her evident physical fragility. "I'm 4 years old, but everyone thinks I'm younger because of the hunger. I was begging for food downstairs when I heard you guys yelling in Arabic." Khalil approached the girl, his face still expressing disbelief. He spoke a few rapid sentences in Arabic, testing her. Yasmin responded fluently, her impeccable pronunciation making Khalil's eyes widen even further. She turned to Vincent. "He wants to know how a little American girl learned Arabic so well. I told him that my mom, Amira, taught me before. She left." The pause in the girl's voice carried a pain that made Vincent's heart clench, but he barely had time to process that information. Khalil began to speak again, this time directly to Yasmin, his gestures calmer as he explained something in Arabic. "He said he came to the United States specifically to invest in your resort project," Yasmin translated, looking at Vincent. "That he researched your company for months and believes in the potential of tourism in Arizona, but he's frustrated because he feels that you didn't prepare adequately to receive him." Vincent felt a mixture of relief and despair. "Tell him that the translator had a family emergency and that I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. That this project is the most important of my career and that I have the utmost respect for him and his family." Yasmin translated with the precision of a professional interpreter. Khalil nodded, his expression softening slightly. He responded at length, gesturing towards the blueprints spread out on the table. "He wants to review all the details of the project," Yasmin translated. "The costs, the deadlines, the exact location, the expected return on investment. He said he has other projects in the US awaiting approval, but yours was the one that caught his attention the most because it combines nature with luxury." Over the next hour, Yasmin mediated every word of the negotiation with impressive technical precision. She translated terms like cash flow, profitability, and net worth as if they were everyday words in her vocabulary. More than that, she occasionally asked questions or made suggestions that demonstrated an astonishingly mature understanding of the business being discussed. When Khalil asked about the investment guarantees, Yasmin not only translated Vincent's answer but added, "Mr. Al-Mansouri, my mom always said that trust is built with transparency. Mr. Rodriguez has all the documents you need to see." The negotiation flowed as it never had before. Khalil began to smile, impressed not only with the girl's linguistic skills, but with her ability to mediate the dialogue intelligently. At 5 in the afternoon, he extended his hand to Vincent, smiling broadly. "Mubarak," he said, and Yasmin translated, "Congratulations. He agrees to invest the 5 million in the project." Vincent felt his legs almost give way with relief. His company was saved, his wealth preserved, his dreams intact. He looked at the skeletal girl who had saved his business life and, in a wave of emotional gratitude, said the words that would change both of their lives forever. "Yasmin, if you help me close this deal, I'm adopting you. I promise." The girl stared at him with her big eyes, tears beginning to form. "Are you serious?" "I am," replied Vincent, without hesitating. "You saved my company today. Now let me save you." Khalil watched the scene with a touched smile, understanding the emotion of the moment even without needing a translation. But what neither of the men knew at that moment was that fulfilling that promise would be much more complicated than Vincent ever imagined. The next morning, Vincent woke up with the weight of reality falling on his shoulders like an avalanche. The euphoria of closing the deal of the century had given way to growing anxiety when he realized that he had no idea how to adopt a child. Yasmin had slept on the sofa of his luxurious penthouse, and seeing her so small and fragile among the imported silk cushions, he understood the magnitude of the commitment he had made. "Good morning, Uncle Vincent," said Yasmin, her eyes still swollen from sleep, but with a glimmer of hope that he had never seen in a 4-year-old. "Good morning, little one," he replied, pouring a glass of natural orange juice. "Yasmin, I need to ask you some questions about your family, okay?" The girl nodded, sipping the juice as if it were the nectar of the gods. Vincent noticed how she held the glass with both hands, savoring each sip with a gratitude that made his heart clench. "Where did you live before you came to the streets?" he asked gently. "With my mum, Amira. She worked cleaning the house of a Syrian family, the Habibs. That's where I learned Arabic, playing with their children," Yasmin explained, her voice getting lower. "But one day, Mom got very sad and said she needed to leave. She left me with the neighbor, Mrs. Rosie, but she left after 3 months too. And you don't have other relatives? Grandparents, uncles, aunts?" Yasmin shook her head. "My mom always said it was just the 2 of us against the world. That our family was small, but strong." Vincent realized that the situation was more complex than he had imagined. He decided to seek professional help and called Beatrice Ferreira, a lawyer specializing in family law, who he had met at business events. "Vincent, you can't just adopt a child you found on the street," explained Beatrice 2 hours later in her office in downtown Phoenix. "There's a whole legal process. First, we need to verify that she really doesn't have a family. Then she would have to go to a shelter while the proceedings run." "Shelter?" Vincent felt a chill in his stomach, "but I promised I would take care of her." "And you can take care of her, but within the law," said Beatrice, watching Yasmin, who was drawing birds on a sheet of paper. "Does she have a birth certificate?" Yasmin looked up. "My mum kept it in a little box with other important things. But when Mrs. Rosie left, she took everything." Beatrice sighed. "Without documents, it gets even more complicated. I'll need time to find this Mrs. Rosie and verify the girl's legal situation." Over the next 3 months, Vincent faced the first major obstacle of his life, that money couldn't solve immediately. Even with his resources and connections, the legal system was inflexible. Yasmin was placed in temporary custody in a shelter in the west side of Phoenix, and Vincent could only visit her 3 times a week for 2 hours each time. "Is Uncle Vincent coming to get me today?" Yasmin asked the shelter coordinator, Marcia Santos, a 50-year-old woman who had fallen in love with the girl's exceptional intelligence, every morning. "He's coming to visit you, honey. Everyone is working for you to stay with him as soon as possible," replied Marcia, combing Yasmin's hair that was already starting to shine with proper nutrition. It was during one of these visits that the first significant twist happened. Khalil al-Mansouri returned to the United States, bringing with him his son Rafiq, 4, who needed to learn English to keep up with the family's business in the country. "Vincent, my friend," said Khalil, meeting him at the shelter one afternoon in December. "I brought Rafiq to meet the extraordinary girl who saved our business." Rafiq was a shy child with dark hair and curious eyes who hid behind his father's legs. When he saw Yasmin, he muttered something in Arabic. "He said you're small, but Daddy said you're very smart," Yasmin translated, smiling for the first time in weeks. "Ahlan wa sahlan," replied Rafiq, still shy. He said, "Welcome," Yasmin explained to Vincent, then addressed the boy in fluent Arabic. The conversation between the 2 children flowed naturally, alternating between Arabic and English. Khalil watched in awe as his son, usually reserved with strangers, broke into a genuine smile for the first time since they arrived in the United States. "Yasmin," said Khalil, crouching down to her level, "would you like to teach English to Rafiq? I would pay very well." "I don't want your money," replied Yasmin, with an impressive dignity for someone so small. "But I would like to help Rafiq. He seems lonely, like me." Khalil was touched by the answer. "Then it will be our friendship, not work." During January, while Beatrice fought the bureaucracy to expedite the adoption process, Yasmin and Rafiq met at the shelter 3 times a week. The girl taught the boy not only English, but also American games, while Rafiq shared stories of Dubai and taught numbers in Arabic to Yasmin. "Uncle Vincent," said Yasmin during a visit in February, "Rafiq told me that his dad wants you to do more business together. He said something about Dubai." Vincent frowned. Khalil had mentioned vaguely about opportunities in the Middle East, but nothing concrete. The following week, Khalil made a proposal that would change everything. "Vincent, I want to offer you a partnership in my business in Dubai. With your talent for tourist projects and the special connection between our children, we could build something extraordinary." "Our children?" asked Vincent, his heart warming at the expression. "Yasmin is already your daughter in your heart, isn't she? And Rafiq considers her a sister. They have a special connection." Khalil paused. "But there is one condition. You would need to move to Dubai for 2 years to supervise the projects personally." Vincent felt the world spin. Moving to Dubai would mean expanding his business exponentially, multiplying his wealth, transforming his small Arizona construction company into an international enterprise. But it would also mean taking Yasmin away from everything she knew, assuming an even greater responsibility. "I need to think," he said, but his mind was already seething with possibilities and fears. That night, Vincent barely slept. His investments in the United States were finally paying off, but Khalil's offer represented an opportunity to turn millions into tens of millions. His net worth could grow exponentially, guaranteeing not only his future, but Yasmin's. But one question haunted his thoughts. Was he doing this for Yasmin's sake or for his own ambition? The answer would come sooner than expected, in a discovery that would change everything he thought he knew about the girl he had promised to protect. Beatrice's call came on a March morning that promised to be ordinary, but that would become the most disturbing day in Vincent's life. He was reviewing contracts for his new investments in real estate funds when the phone rang with an urgency that made his stomach clench. "Vincent, "I need to see you immediately," said the lawyer, her voice laden with a tension he had never heard before. "It's about Yasmin. I found something that changes everything." An hour later, in Beatrice's office, Vincent held a folder of documents with trembling hands. Before him, the lawyer's face was pale as someone who had discovered something terrible. "The Mrs. Rosie that Yasmin mentioned didn't disappear as she thought," began Beatrice, removing a certificate from the envelope. "She died of a heart attack 3 months after receiving Yasmin. But before that, she sought the authorities concerned about a discovery she made." "What discovery?" asked Vincent, his heart pounding. "Yasmin's mother, Amira, is not dead." Beatrice paused, letting the words settle. "She's hospitalized at St. John's Psychiatric Hospital in a catatonic state for 8 months. Vincent's world collapsed. "What do you mean? Yasmin said she left." "For a 4-year-old, psychiatric hospitalization and death can seem like the same thing when someone simply disappears from your life," Beatrice explained gently. "According to hospital records, Amira suffered a severe nervous breakdown in June of last year. She lost her memory, doesn't recognize anyone, doesn't speak." Vincent buried his face in his hands. "And I promised to adopt Yasmin without even knowing her mother was alive." "There's more," continued Beatrice, removing another document. "Amira was admitted without identification papers. The doctors were only able to identify her because Mrs. Rosie brought information. And they discovered something disturbing in the DNA tests they did for the medical file." The room fell into a deathly silence. Vincent looked up, fearing to hear what was coming next. "Amira is not Yasmin's biological mother. The tests proved that there is no blood relation between them." The shock was so great that Vincent needed to hold on to the table. "How is it possible?" "Apparently, Amira found Yasmin when she was a baby, abandoned in a public hospital. She never formalized the adoption. She just raised the girl as her daughter. Yasmin really has no known family in the world." During the following days, Vincent struggled with the weight of this revelation. Should he tell Yasmin that the woman she believed to be her mother was not only alive, but also not her biological mother? How to explain such complexity to a 4-year-old who had already suffered so much? The decision came when he visited Amira in the psychiatric hospital. The woman of approximately 28 years old was sitting in a chair near the window, her empty gaze fixed on the garden outside. Her dark hair, so similar to Yasmin's, was disheveled, and she rocked her body slowly back and forth. "Amira," called Vincent softly. She didn't react. The nurse explained that she hadn't responded to external stimuli for months, fed only when forced, and occasionally mumbled words in Arabic that no one could understand. "Did she have any documents about Yasmin?" asked Vincent. "Just a photo," replied the nurse, showing a faded photograph of baby Yasmin in Amira's arms. "She holds this photo sometimes, but shows no recognition." Vincent looked at the photo, his heart breaking to see the genuine love on Amira's face as she held baby Yasmin. Biological mother or not, that woman had loved the girl deeply. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Yasmin was going through her own disturbing discoveries. Rafik had brought a book about the geography of the Middle East, and when they were flipping through the pages together, Yasmin found photos that triggered fragmented memories. "I know this place," she murmured, pointing to an image of Damascus. "My mum showed me pictures like this and talked about her homeland." "Do you want to go back there?" asked Rafik naively. Yasmin was silent for a long time. "I don't know where my homeland is. I just know I want to stay close to those who love me." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Marcia, the shelter coordinator, with a worried expression. "Yasmin, honey, some people have arrived who say they are your family. They want to meet you." In Vincent's heart, who had arrived for his routine visit, the world stopped again. In the reception room of the shelter were a woman of apparently 40 years old and an older man, both holding documents. "I am Fatima al-Zahra," said the woman, "and this is my husband, Hassan. We are Yasmin's aunt and uncle, sister of her biological father. Beatrice, who had been called urgently, examined the documents. The papers seem authentic. There is a birth certificate of Yasmin's parents, death certificate of both, and proof of kinship. "We want to take our niece with us," declared Hassan. "She belongs to our family." Yasmin hid behind Vincent, whispering, "I don't know them. I've never seen these people in my life." "How did you know about Yasmin?" asked Vincent suspiciously. "We have been looking for her since her parents died in an accident," lied Fatima. "We finally found her through hospital records." But Beatrice, with her experience, noticed inconsistencies. "If you've been looking for her for so long, why didn't you find her when she was with Amira? Why are you only showing up now?" Hassan and Fatima exchanged nervous glances. The truth, which would only be revealed later, was that they had discovered about Yasmin through reports in the local press about the miracle of the Translator girl who had saved $1 million deal. The connection with Vincent represented a financial opportunity that they couldn't ignore. "Yasmin needs to grow up knowing her Arab origins," insisted Fatima. "With us, she will learn about her true culture." "I already know about my culture," replied Yasmin, her voice small but firm. "My mum, Amira, taught me everything, and I choose to stay with Uncle Vincent." The legal dispute that followed was brutal. Hassan and Fatima hired lawyers who argued that Yasmin should stay with blood relatives. Vincent mobilized all his financial resources, his best contacts in the legal world, turning what should have been a matter of love into a battle of wealth and influence. During this period, Khalil watched everything with growing concern. Rafiq asked daily when Yasmin would return to visit them, and the tension was affecting even his business. "My friend," said Khalil to Vincent one afternoon in April, "perhaps we should postpone the Dubai plans until we resolve this." "No," replied Vincent with iron determination. "If I lose Yasmin to these people, I will also lose the reason to expand the business. Everything I build now is to give her the best possible future." But the question that haunted his nights was simple and terrifying. What if the law determined that Yasmin really belonged to that family that had appeared out of nowhere? What if all his money, all his influence, weren't enough to keep the promise he had made? The answer would come soon, in a twist that no one could have predicted. The hearing that would decide Yasmin's future was scheduled for a May morning that dawned grey and rainy, as if the sky itself reflected the tension that consumed everyone involved. Vincent had invested a fortune in expert lawyers, mobilized all his political and business connections, but he knew that he faced the absolute power of blood ties before the American law. In the courtroom, Yasmin held Vincent's hand tightly, her big eyes fixed on Judge Armando Silveira, a 60-year-old man known for his rigidity in family custody cases. On the other side of the room, Hassan and Fatima waited with their lawyers, confident that victory was guaranteed. "Yasmin," said the judge gently, "do you understand why we are all here today?" The girl nodded. "You are going to decide who I am going to live with. And who would you like to live with?" "With Uncle Vincent," she replied without hesitation. "He promised me a family, and I promised to be his daughter." Hassan stood up. "Your Honor, the child is being manipulated. She doesn't know her true origins, her Arab culture. With us, she will grow up knowing who she really is." It was at that moment that the twist happened that would change everything. Fatima, visibly nervous, whispered something urgent in her husband's ear. Hassan paled and asked the judge for a break. "Your Honor," said Hassan's lawyer, clearly embarrassed, "my clients would like to make a statement." What followed left everyone in the room in absolute shock. Fatima stood up, tears streaming down her face, and made a confession that no one expected. "I lied. We lied." Her trembling voice echoed through the silent room. "Yasmin is not our niece. We never had a brother who died in an accident. We saw the news about her on television, about how she saved Mr. Rodriguez's business, and we thought, We thought we could benefit from this situation." Hassan tried to silence her, but she continued. "My husband said that if we got custody, we could use her connection with rich people to improve our lives. But looking at her now, seeing the love in her eyes for this man, I can't continue with this lie." The silence in the room was deafening. Vincent felt a mixture of relief and fury, while Yasmin just squeezed his hand tighter. "Why are you doing this?" asked Yasmin, her voice small but brave. "I never did you any harm." Fatima knelt in front of Yasmin. "Because we are bad people who tried to use an innocent child to make money. But you deserve to stay with who really loves you." The judge, visibly outraged, immediately determined that Hassan and Fatima would be held criminally liable for attempted fraud. More importantly, he declared that there were no more legal impediments to Vincent's adoption of Yasmin. But the real twist was just beginning. 2 weeks later, while Vincent was finalizing the adoption papers, he received a call that would change everything once again. It was from St. John's Psychiatric Hospital. "Mr. Rodriguez, it's about Amira. She had a sudden and unexpected improvement. She's talking again and asked to see Yasmin." Vincent's heart almost stopped. He had decided not to tell Yasmin about Amira, waiting for the right moment. Now, that moment had arrived abruptly. "Uncle Vincent," asked Yasmin when he arrived at the shelter to pick her up, "why do you look sad? Didn't the judge say I can live with you?" Vincent knelt in front of her. "Yasmin, I need to tell you something very important about your mom, Amira." Yasmin's eyes filled with tears instantly. "She didn't leave, did she? She's sick." The girl's intuition once again surprised him. "How did you know?" "Because mothers who love don't leave without explaining, and my mum loved me very much." Yasmin wiped away her tears. "Can I see her?" At the hospital, the meeting between Yasmin and Amira was one of the most touching moments Vincent had ever witnessed. Amira, still fragile but with her eyes shining with recognition, opened her arms when she saw the girl. "Habibi," she murmured in Arabic. "My darling." Yasmin ran into her arms and both cried, embraced for long minutes. When they finally separated, Amira looked at Vincent with deep gratitude. "Thank you for taking care of her," said Amira, her voice still weak but clear. "I remember everything now. I remember finding her when she was a baby, abandoned. I remember loving her as if she were my daughter, and I remember being afraid of not being able to take good care of her when the illness started." "You always took good care of me, Mom," said Yasmin, "and now Uncle Vincent will take care of both of us." But Amira shook her head gently. "No, my dear, my illness has no complete cure. I can have good moments like this, but I will also have bad moments. You need stability, a family that can always give you security, but I don't want to leave you alone." "You won't leave me alone," said Amira, looking at Vincent. "If he allows it, you can visit me always, and I will be happy knowing that you have the family I always dreamed of giving you." That afternoon, Vincent made a decision that would change his financial and personal life forever. He used a significant portion of his wealth to ensure that Amira received the best possible medical treatment in a private clinic, where Yasmin could visit her whenever she wanted. 3 months later, in a simple but moving ceremony, Yasmin officially became Yasmin Rodriguez. Khalil and Rafiq were present, as were Beatrice, Marcia from the shelter, and even some employees of the construction company who had followed the entire journey. "Now you are officially my daughter," said Vincent, kissing Yasmin's forehead. "And you are officially my dad," she replied, smiling for the first time in months. The decision about Dubai was made as a family. Khalil had kept his offer open, and after long conversations, they decided it would be a unique opportunity for Yasmin to know the Arab world that she loved so much through language. "But we'll only go if Mom Amira agrees," said Yasmin, with the wisdom of someone much older than her 5 years. Amira not only agreed, but was thrilled with the possibility. "You are going to know the land where our special language comes from," she said, stroking Yasmin's hair. And when you come back, you're going to tell me everything. At the airport, on the morning of the departure to Dubai, Yasmin held a small suitcase with her few possessions. Some drawings of birds she had made at the shelter, photos with Amira, and a doll that Rafiq had given her. "Dad," she said, looking through the airport window at the planes, "thank you for keeping your promise." "Thank you for saving not only my business, but my life," replied Vincent, realizing that his true wealth was not in the millions he had earned, but in the family he had won. 2 years later, when they returned from Dubai, Rodriguez Construction had transformed into an international company. Yasmin spoke 5 languages fluently, Rafiq spent his vacations in the United States, and Amira was stable enough to live in a house near Vincent's, where Yasmin visited her daily. In the living room of his new home, larger and more luxurious than the previous one, Vincent watched Yasmin teaching English to a group of Arab refugee children who had arrived in Phoenix. His daughter had found her purpose, using her linguistic gifts to help other children who, like her, needed a new chance in life. "She really saved you, didn't she?" asked Khalil, who was visiting the United States for new business. "We saved each other," replied Vincent, smiling as he watched Yasmin apply a bandage to the knee of one of the refugee children who had hurt himself playing. "Sometimes the greatest riches come to us through the smallest voices." And at that moment, watching his daughter care for other children with the same love that Amira had once shown for her, Vincent understood that he had won much more than $5 million that distant day in September. He had gained a family, a purpose, and the certainty that the most important promises in life are those we make with the heart. If you like this wonderful story, please comment. Your opinion is very important, and if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.